to Krishna in Vrindavan. This is episode 14. We're exactly halfway through the month of Kartik. And so today we'll be talking about the backstory of the Kaliya serpent, and also Krishna's swallowing the forest fire, the first one. He actually swallows 2 forest fires.
What?
But we're going to do the first one today. Let me just pin myself here. There we go. Okay, so let's sing our Krishna song. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Pahimam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai. Welcome everybody. We are going to be reading from Canto 10, chapter 17. And this starts with this chapter is called The History of Kaliya. And it starts with that. And then it goes into Krishna swallowing the forest fire. So I'm going to read something that I learned in my Bhaktivedanta class about Kaliya's past lives, which is not here in the Bhagavatam. So the story I heard is that in a previous day of Brahma, so this is a very long time ago, there was a sage named Vrindavan Muni. And he was a descendant of Bhrigu, and he was performing austerities in the Vindhya hills, which is in the Himalayas. And he had an ashram there. So he had this, primitive kind of dharmashala, simple ashram in the mountains where he was performing his austerities. So one day another sage, Avasira Muni, came, and he wanted to stay in the same ashram and perform austerities in that place. And he thought, what's the problem? This person's an ascetic. He's just living a simple life, doing austerities. We can stay here and do our austerities. But Vedasira wasn't happy. He wanted to be there alone. And so when Ashvasira Muni came, he looked at him like with a look to kill, with like fiery glance, like, what are you doing here? Who said you could stay in my ashram? You can go find someplace else. Aren't these mountains big? Can't you find another cave or make your own ashram? Just, get out of here. That was his mood. So he had kind of this envious mood. He wasn't welcoming. He wasn't really like, because he was an ascetic. He wasn't, he was kind of like a Vaishnava. He was a devotee, but he was mixed. So then Ashvasira Muni said, excuse me, this is not your place. This is, it belongs to Lord Vishnu. Everything belongs to Lord Vishnu, and everybody here worships Lord Vishnu. This is his ashram. It's not yours. And many sages performed austerities here in the past. Many more will in the future after you go. And I don't understand why you're getting angry. This is not something to get angry about. But he says, because you have hissed at me like a snake, therefore I curse you to become a snake. So that was the beginning. And he says, as a snake, you will be terrified by Garuda due to your envy of me and to Lord Vishnu. So then Vedasira counter-cursed him that, this was just a very slight offense, just that I didn't receive you. And now you're given such a heavy curse, so you should become a crow. And then at that moment, both of them were unhappy because they're like, oh no, now we're both, we came here to try to do austerities to get, pious activities to please the Lord. And we both ended up now with very terrible next lives. Because the whole point is pious activities is to elevate you and have a good life in the next life. But their effort to perform pious activities ended up degrading them. So then Lord Vishnu appeared and he said, O sages, you are both my devotees, and you're equally dear to me. Although I cannot revoke your curses, but Vedasira, when you are a snake, I'll come and I'll place my feet on your head, and you will not fear Garuda. And he said to Ashvasir, as a crow, you will have the highest transcendental knowledge. So I'm not sure what happened to the crow. What's that? Who's that? Oh, it could be. Yeah, I wanted to ask that, but yeah, that could be. That's interesting. So anyway, so this sage, he had to take birth as Kaliya, and it turns out that Garuda and Kaliya were brothers. They were both sons of Kashyapa Muni, and Kashyapa Muni, he had many different wives, and each of his wives gave birth to the different species of the earth. And also one of their sons was Vamanadev. Right? All the demigods took birth from Aditi, and Vamanadev also took birth from Kashyapa and Aditi. So Kaliya, he was a devotee in the past life that Lord Vishnu personally came and tried to help. And so he's a devotee. He's not a demon like, other demons. So Garuda's mother was Vinata, and Kaliya's mother was Kadru. And Kaliya also had exalted brothers like Anantashesh and Vasuki. So like that. So Garuda and Kaliya, they were brothers, and they were very there was a lot of sibling rivalry between the two of them. They were very competitive. And one day they were just like brothers, just kind of like messing around and competing with each other. So they made a bet about the color of the tail of a horse named Uchai Shrava. It's a famous horse that's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. That Krishna says, of horses I am Uchai Shrava. So the bet was whether the horse's tail was black or white. So Garuda said it's white, and Kaliya said it's black. Now, actually, it was black, but actually it was white. But then Kaliya got all of these little snakes who were like his little brothers and little nieces and nephews to go there and all just like hang there on the tail, so it looked black. So then, because Kaliya didn't want to lose, so then he said, "Oh, it's the tail's black, you lose." And therefore, the bet was that whoever lost, the punishment was that person and their mother had to become the servant of the other one. so then Garuda and Vinata became servants of Kaliya, and they had to carry because they were birds, they had to carry the snakes wherever they wanted to go. And it was just really bad. It was just like, they had lost their souls into slavery to Kaliya, and that because of being cheated. So then, let's see. So then one day they went to the snakes and they said, what can we do to get free from this? This is not working for us. Is there anything we can do? And they said, yeah, you can, if you go and get the nectar, the soma rasa from the churning of the ocean of milk that all the demigods got, if you bring that to us, then we'll let you go. So then they went, Garuda went flying there, and let's see. Okay, Garuda got it. Oh, so Garuda got the nectar and put some pot of the nectar there in front of the snakes. But he said that you should go and bathe before taking this because this is sacred. And they went to take their bath, but in the meantime, the demigods came and Indra stole the nectar before the snakes could get it. But a little drop spilled out, and the snakes licked it up. But the nectar was so potent that it split the tongue of the snakes. So from that, all the snakes' tongues are split. But in any case, they brought the nectar, and Garuda and his mother got free, and but the enmity between the two brothers remained. So then later, the snakes went to live at a place called Ramanaka Island. That's where it starts here in the Bhagavatam, I think, in the beginning of this chapter. 17. Yeah. So the snakes have this abode called Ramanaka Island, the abode of the serpents. And Garuda eats snakes. And so all these other snakes were living there. Kaliya wasn't living there yet, but Garuda was just going there and eating so many snakes. So then the snakes, they decided that they would make an arrangement where instead of him just coming and eating any random snakes, that they would make it a monthly offering. So they would, get food or whatever. Maybe some of the snakes would go, and anyways, every month they would make an offering at the base of a particular tree where Garuda could go and eat, and then he wouldn't disturb. So they didn't have to live in constant fear, basically, of Garuda, that he would come any minute and eat any one of them. So in this way, it was going on. And then, let's see, says in text, I'm reading from chapter 17, text 4. Although all the other serpents were dutifully making offerings to Garuda, one serpent, Kaliya, son of Kadru, would eat all these offerings before Garuda could claim them. All right, so they were offering like other foods. And then Kaliya was like, why should Garuda eat this? I'll just eat it myself, because they had this animosity. So Kaliya defied Garuda. And so Garuda got angry and he wanted to kill Kaliya. So he went like rushing, attacking towards Kaliya, and Kaliya was counterattacking him with his poison. So showing his ferocious tongues, expanding his horrible eyes, Kaliya then bit Garuda with the weapon of his fangs. The angry son of Tarksha, with overwhelming speed and repelling Kaliya's attack, that terrible, powerful carrier of Lord Madhusudan struck the son of Kaju with his left wing, which shone like gold. So yeah, the wing of Garuda was gold and it looked like fire when it was moving, and snakes are afraid of fire. So Kaliya became afraid, and then he started running all over the universe, basically. He ran up and down all over the universe, and Garuda was chasing him at that point. And he went all the way to the bottom of the universe where Anantashesh resides, and he took shelter of Anantashesh. And Anantashesh told him, there's one place in this universe where you can go where Garuda can never bother you, and that's the Yamuna. Because previously, Sobari Muni was meditating in the Yamuna, and Garuda also eats fish. So Garuda went there and ate the biggest fish there, who was like the king of all the fish. He just got him and swooped down, chomped him down, and just like swallowed him and flew off. So so Bari Muni didn't like that, because he was, compassionate towards the fish. And so he said, Garuda, you get out of here and never come back. And if you do come back, then you're going to die. So then Garuda could never go back to the Yamuna. And Anantashesh knew that. So he said, go there, you'll be safe. But then, of course, there's another story about Sobari Muni. He didn't recognize Garuda to be a great devotee of Krishna, and so he basically committed Vaishnava aparad by depriving the devotee of his natural food. And so he suffered a reaction for that, and because he for the sake of protecting some fish, he offended a devotee, then Sobari's downfall was fish. It was caused by fish, because he saw two fish mating, and then he got agitated. And then his meditation broke, and he got this desire to get married, and then he went and married 50 women. Of course, after the ending was good for Sobari Muni, because he became a devotee, and all his 50 wives and all the children became devotees, and they all went back to Godhead. So that's okay.
Moral of the story, don't curse anyone.
Exactly.
No cursing.
Yeah, there's a lot of cursing going on. So this is actually very interesting, and I was thinking about this before I came here, because these are all devotees. Yesterday Partha was asking this question, that how is it that the wives of Kaliya were devotees and Kaliya seems like a demon? But Kaliya wasn't actually a demon, he was a devotee. And that's how he got devotee wives. So then how is it that he was trying to, bite Krishna and kill Krishna, basically, if he's a devotee? That's very odd behavior. So that's because of envy towards a Vaishnava. So when a devotee is envious towards another devotee, then they can act in ways that are actually demoniac. And that's what happened with Kaliya. So, Kaliya didn't necessarily attack the cowherd boys. He was just poisonous. It was his nature that he's poisonous. And so he poisoned the river, and then the cowherd boys went to drink the water and they died. So it's not that he deliberately did it, but it just, However, the cowherd boys nearly died, so Krishna had to get rid of him. Yeah, Janaki?
I have a question. So that can be reflected in us
Yeah,
as devotees.
yeah,
But India is like one of the last qualities to go away, right? It's like always kind of there.
yeah,
Kind of be envy Krishna. So it's like very subtle.
yeah,
So, but as long as we, even if we feel envy, as long as we, Kaliya acted on it.
yeah.
We did things out of it. So as long as we don't act on it, then we're good.
Yeah, so it's good to be wary of these things and understand, like, if we have a desire to do something that might harm another devotee, like, it's probably envy, and sometimes we think, like, in our minds, we're like, no, this is the right thing to do. But if, there are many options to the way that you could solve a problem, and sometimes you'll gravitate towards an option that ends up inconveniencing another devotee. And you may think that's fine, and that could be coming from envy, like a subtle envy that you didn't quite notice. So it's good to look out for that can arise. And then there are just other devotees. There are some devotees that, I've had experience personally with devotees who are just like become envious, and they just do really terrible things to other devotees, and they have their reasons for, justifying it and try to cover it over and make it look like it's not bad, but yeah, that happens. Evan.
I was wondering, Lord Vishnu said, I can't revoke your curses.
Yeah.
Is that he can't, or he just didn't want to? He can, right?
He generally doesn't. Like, if a Brahmin gives a blessing or a curse, the Lord doesn't, he generally tries to keep that intact, because the Brahmins tries to maintain the truthfulness of the Brahmins.
I'm wondering,
But he usually works with it. He'll almost always say that I can't counteract the curse, but he'll give some benediction to sort of soften it or make it come to a happy ending.
Garuda, how did he become the carrier of Lord Vishnu?
Yeah, I was thinking, was he like a mortal before?
Was he a what?
Was he a mortal before?
I'm not really sure. That's something I have to research.
Because it appears like that he was born, and then even the sage curse that if you come here again, you will die.
Yeah.
But then we know him as the eternal servant of Krishna, so then all would be.
Yeah.
I listened to a really great lecture on
Oh, yeah?
YouTube by a Vaishnavi. I forget who exactly it was, but it was about the whole story of how Garuda got the nectar, and by doing all of these incredible heroic feats.
Mm.
There was a lot of really cool stuff that happened. Then he was recognized by Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu was like, "Hey, you want to be my carrier?" So I think that was it. I can find that lecture if people want to see.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
really good.
And share.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So then, can we finish this? Also, it says that Garuda's hunger in this case, where he really wanted to eat the fish there in the Yamuna, it was just a pastime. That Garuda's an advanced devotee. He's not so disturbed by hunger like that. But this is all to facilitate Krishna's pastime. So these things happen. Okay. So then that's that. The history of Kaliya. All right, so then now, Shukadeva Goswami tells that story, and then we come to text 14. Resuming his description of Krishna's chastisement of Kaliya, Shukadeva Goswami continues. So yeah, he talks about how Krishna, after dancing on the hoods of Kaliya, and Kaliya comes to his senses, he gives up his envy, he gives up his whatever anger towards Krishna, and he surrenders to Krishna basically. Then Krishna, he rises up out of the water, and he's wearing divine garlands, as it's described here, fragrances and garments. He's covered with fine jewels and decorated with gold. because Kaliya had basically confiscated and accumulated all these things. And so the wives of Kaliya had offered all these things, and they dressed Krishna up. They put all the ornaments on him. They got him all decked up. So then when he came from that, he was looking like a prince, like a little prince. And then he comes over to, he gets back on the bank where all the cowherd people are still like unconscious from fainting. A lot of them anyway, not all of them, but at least a lot of them. So then it's described that, yeah, because the Brajvasis were so connected to Krishna that when Krishna was in trouble, it was like they were in trouble. Krishna was their life. So when it looked like Krishna's life was going to be extinguished, their lives were extinguished. So they were all lying there unconscious, and they didn't even see Krishna's, the whole dance show and the celestial music. Most of them just were totally out cold for the whole thing. But Sanatana Goswami says that when Krishna came back to the shore, as he approached them, then the fragrance of his lotus feet, the very sweet divine fragrance of Krishna's body, entered the nostrils of the Vrajvasis and revived them. Just like, you know how sometimes if you're losing consciousness, somebody puts the ammonia under your nose, and then it's like, have you ever had that happen to you? It's horrible, right? Oh my God, they put that thing, you're just like about to just pass out, and it's really bad. So it's like, don't do that to me. I won't faint. Just don't do that again. Huh? Ammonia. Yeah. It's a really bad smelling thing. So yeah. So it was kind of like that, but it wasn't bad. It was nice. So they smelled that fragrance and they're like, ooh, they woke up like that. Krishna's feet are really nice. Yeah. When we can just aspire to smell Krishna's feet, to be that close, to get downwind of Krishna's feet. Yeah, so everybody woke up. The trees and the other vegetation that had dried up and withered and shriveled and gotten poisoned, it all just sprang to life again, sprouting new leaves and flowers and fruits. And just like we described before, when Krishna was walking through the forest of Vrindavan, then the trees, they wanted to get close. They wanted to touch him. So they were spontaneously like growing. They're growing as fast as they could because they can't walk. All they can do is grow. So they're growing. And then flowers, buds are coming and flowers are coming and fruits. And it's just like a, you know, have you ever seen one of those time lapse photography of like the sunrise or like a plant growing? So it's like a tree. So it was like that. It was like time lapse videography. So yeah. And then all right, so let's look here. What's going on here? I'm losing track of myself. So Rohini, yeah, so all the cowherd women, Rohini, Yashoda, Nanda, everybody went running up to Krishna. And Balaram embraced his brother, and he was laughing. Remember Balaram? He was just smiling and laughing the whole time. So he was just like, haha, this was like a really cool pastime that you just did. And he put Krishna on his lap. And then Mother Yashoda got him. And it says, all the respectable Brahmanas, together with their wives, came forward to greet Nanda Maharaj. They said to him, your son was in the grips of Kaliya, but by the grace of Providence, he is now free. Like that. They always think that it's Lord Vishnu, Providence, you know, it's never that Krishna by his own power. And then the Brahmins would say, to assure that your son Krishna will always be free from danger, you should give charity to the Brahmanas. It's always the thing. So then Nanda Maharaj, he's like, yeah. So he gave so much gold and cows and everything to the Brahmins. And then Yashoda took Krishna, put him on her lap, and she was crying. Like before, she was crying because of grief and anxiety and fear, and now she's crying because of jubilation and ecstasy that Krishna came back. So then it was getting late already because this was happening for a long time, and the sun was starting to go down, but nobody wanted to leave Krishna because that whole time they had been in such angst, you know, that Krishna's going to die. We're never going to see Krishna again. How are we going to live without Krishna? And so everybody from Vrindavan was there, and everybody was just, they just spent the last several hours thinking that we're never going to see Krishna again. And so now the last thing that they wanted to do was to be separate from Krishna. I mean, they never want to be separate from Krishna, but especially after this, they're just like, we just want to keep Krishna in our sight. So nobody wanted to go home, because if they went home, that meant that Krishna is going to the house of Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, and they're going to their homes, and they're going to close the door and go to sleep, and they're not going to see Krishna. So then on the pretext of being hungry and thirsty and tired, and like too hungry, thirsty, and tired to walk all the way back home, they thought, let's just camp out here for the night. So that's what they did. They just, the cows and everybody, they just exactly in the spot where they were, they lied right down on the bank of the Yamuna, and they prepared to go to bed. And the cowherd men were also making some pretext. They're like, we have to stay here because maybe Kaliya will come back. Maybe Kaliya will change his mind and try to, come back to the Yamuna. So we've got our sticks. We're going to stand guard here, make sure that horrible snake doesn't come back and get our son in his coils again. So, but of course that wasn't going to happen. But they were just coming up with excuses why they all had to stay there, and Krishna had to stay there, and everyone had to stay there. So they all were very happy now. They were like, they breathed a sigh of relief, and they just looked at Krishna's beautiful lotus face, and they just lied down and took rest. So then, in the middle of the night, something happened. Da-da-da-da. They woke up to the sound of crackling and crashing trees and wind, like howling wind. And what they looked around, and there was a forest fire, and the forest fire had completely surrounded them. Every way they looked, it was just burning, and it had been burning for a while. So the trees were like, crashing, falling on another, and the sparks were flying all over, and it was really scary. That's yeah, so they woke up like that. Imagine waking up like that. Like you already had such a distressful day. The previous day, it's like, it couldn't get much worse, than seeing Krishna in the grips of a horrible, multi-headed, hissing, poisonous, fire-breathing serpent. And now they just, were able to rest a little bit. And the next thing, now they're surrounded by this huge forest fire. So then what do? They take shelter of Krishna. They speak this verse, text 23. Krishna, Krishna Mahabhaga, Hey Ramamita Vikrama, Esha Gora Tamovanis, Tavakan Grasatehina. So they call out to Krishna because they remember that Gargamuni had, when he did the horoscope for Krishna, he had said that this child will save you from all dangers. Whenever you're in danger, he'll save you. But it's funny because Krishna was in danger, and they're all thinking we have to save Krishna. So in their minds, Krishna saves them, but they save Krishna. They don't see Krishna as somebody who can save himself. In their minds, Krishna is just their little child who depends on them. But somehow when they're in danger, they call out to Krishna. Who can understand it? It's just totally inconceivable, the way that the Brajavasis feel about Krishna. But they have faith in the words of Gargamuni because Gargamuni is the Brahmin. He's like the family Brahmin. So whatever he says, they take seriously. And they have nothing, there's no other recourse. What else are they going to do? And especially the cowherd boys, they've already seen that Krishna's killed some demons already up to this point. So they call out to Krishna. And so Krishna, he gets up, and before they say, oh Lord, we are your true friends and devotees. Please protect us from this insurmountable fire of death. We can never give up your lotus feet, which drive away all fear. So yeah, this is the reason that their fear is, explain that the Brajavasis aren't afraid of dying. They're only afraid of being separated from Krishna. So it says here in the purport that if this deadly fire overcomes us, we will be separated from your lotus feet, and this is unbearable for us. Therefore, just so we can go on serving your lotus feet, please protect us. So that's their mood. They just want to be with Krishna. They want to serve Krishna. They want to have all these loving exchanges with Krishna. And so they're not afraid of dying, but they're just afraid of being separated from Krishna. And if they all die, then they're going to be separated from Krishna. So, yeah, so that's their appeal. Boba?
Yeah, I'm curious. So does the Sakya rest goes into like Vasya, like in that movement, like someone Krishna, the Ishvaya potency comes out and they like, hey, please, you shelter, you go to sleep, or because you don't say that to a friend.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah, they say we can never give up your lotus feet. Yeah. Well, it's, and they do call him Prabhu, master.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Yeah. They take shelter. But they, let's see. Let me just read this last verse. Seeing his devotees so disturbed, Sri Krishna, the infinite Lord of the universe and possessor of infinite power, then swallowed the terrible forest fire. Yeah, so because this thing of Gargamuni that Gargamuni said, that this child is, equal to Narayan, and that he's appeared in many different ages and different colors. He's known by many different names. So then when they're in trouble, they remember that just momentarily. But when everything's okay, again, they just forget that.
Right.
So it's kind of like it goes in waves. Yeah, it comes and goes. And so Krishna, he doesn't like to see the devotees disturbed. So he just gets up and he swallows, says here, but he drank. He just souped up the forest fire. But then the acharyas say different things about this swallowing the forest fire. They question whether he actually swallowed it, like sucked it in and swallowed it or not. So different acharyas have different opinions on how Krishna extinguished the fire. Sanatana Goswami says he was thinking of swallowing it, but he didn't actually swallow it. But his thought was that Krishna is the source of Agni, because Krishna is the source of the universal form, and all the elements are in the universal form. He's also the shelter of the whole Mahatattva, and fire is just one of the elements of the Mahatattva. So Krishna, he just by his will, and by his shaktis, because the word here in this last verse, text 25, it says Ananta Shakti Drik, possessor of unlimited potencies. So the acharyas suggest ways that Krishna, not personally, but through his shaktis, through his different potencies, extinguished the fire. And the reason being is because Mother Yashoda, all of his family were there. So he says that he knew that Mother Yashoda would not be happy by him putting fire in his mouth. When he was a baby, Mother Yashoda would always tell him not to play with fire, and that she would be very distressed to see all that fire going in his mouth. So he didn't want to, they're already distressed by just seeing the fire, threatening to burn them up. And if she saw Krishna putting all that fire in his mouth, that was going to be way too much for her. So he said that Krishna drank the fire in a way that no one could understand how it happened. So he did it in a mystical way, not in a visual way. Sometimes we see the later when he swallows the forest fire with the cowherd boys, that's a little different, maybe. But in this case, so the Goswamis, acharyas suggest different things. The Jiva Goswami says that he used his shakti of expansion, and he expanded his form in all directions by his unlimited shaktis, and then those shaktis basically simultaneously just drank the fire, put out the fire. Okay. Then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that he used the shakti of destruction, that out of love for his devotees, Krishna's love for his devotees began to search for a suitable shakti to combat the fire. So it called on the Samarika Shakti, the potency of destruction, to extinguish it. Who can understand? Somehow or other Krishna extinguished the fire, whether he swallowed it or whether he used some different shakti, whether he just got it to merge back into the Mahatattva, the universal form, or whether he expanded his shaktis to just quell it, or whether he used his potency of destruction to destroy it. Who knows? But somehow the Krishna extinguished the fire. And everybody was happy. Not sure what they did after that, but it ends there with them extinguishing the fire, and then it doesn't say what happened next, whether they all just kind of peacefully went back to sleep or whether they decided to give more charity to the Brahmins or what. But yeah, so that's the story of Krishna extinguishing the forest fire. Yeah.
What does it mean? Let's say, like, oh, this is providence. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Providence just means the will of the Lord. Yeah. It's kind of like, it's sort of a generic way of saying that this is the will of the Lord. It just happened by providence, by divine arrangement. That's what it means, divine arrangement.
it's the way I understood it was like maybe a little bit of like, oh, it's just destiny and fate. But I guess it can be.
It kind of has that connotation, yeah, but it means, let's see. I'm gonna look it up here.
You think of fate as karma though, right? And karma is like, happens because of the laws of God. So maybe like incorrectly so.
Mm. It says here, providence, this is dictionary definition. The protective care of God or of nature as a spiritual power. God or nature providing protection or spiritual care. Yeah, so that's more something personal.
Personal or personal.
Based on your conception of God. Yeah, or divine, yeah. So either God or a divine spiritual power, however you conceive of God. The universe. Yeah. Anything else? Spirit world. Okay, so then we are gonna adjourn this pastime. We heard about history of Kaliya, and we heard about how devotees can act like demons when they become envious. So you have to be very careful about not becoming envious. Oh, there was something else. Actually, no, there's something else that I wanted to mention here. That the anartha that's represented by the forest fire. Let's see, can't remember these glasses. Getting old. The anartha is so like sectarianism or hatred in the name of religion between people of different religions or clashes between Vaishnavas. So that's really interesting, right? And yeah, this first forest fire represents hatred in the name of religion between people of different religions or clashes between Vaishnavas. And when I read that, I remembered that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when before he left his body, one of the last things he told Srila Prabhupada, he said, there will be fire in the mat. Because he knew that after he left, his disciples that lived there, they were going to fight amongst each other over who would be the next acharya, or who was going to get the properties, over who was going to, get all the assets of the Gaudiya Math. And that happened. So there was that fire. So that's it. Clashes between Vaishnavas. From it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He wrote a book about it. And then who wrote a really nice paper on it is Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. I think it's called Krishna and Vrindavan and the Demons. And yeah, there's a thing about it. I can share it. I can share it with you. It's short. And it's good. He doesn't elaborate so much on it, but yeah, so an example is, there's many examples of this. For example, devotees criticizing each other. Like if you go on the internet and there's a lot of just like poison,
Yeah.
criticizing Vaishnavas. And yeah, so what happens is that's demoniac. It's just demoniac. And so somehow or other, even though devotees, they can criticize Vaishnavas for a while and feel like they're getting away with it. And they may become confident thinking they have supporters and people are rallying together and like that. So it's like the fire that it spreads, that you put some criticism out there and then people read it and they're like, oh yeah, And then they, add, like you're not feeling bad against the devotee. You feel like you have like a decent relationship with the devotee, but then you read some criticism and then you're like, oh yeah, he also said that to this person, or I saw that he did this too, or have you hear this about this person? Oh yeah, I could see that he kind of has that tendency. And then it kind of like it's like a fire. It starts with just a spark, and then it catches and it expands and it grows and it becomes this whole thing that's just going to burn off your spiritual life, in the end. And so if we feel that somehow we get caught up in this, cycle of snowballing criticism, then we have to call out to Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, save us from this forest fire that's, disturbing me so much, that's threatening to burn up my bhakti. And then Krishna will come and he'll engage his shaktis, his unlimited potencies, somehow or other, either by expanding or by his destruction potency or by his something, and save us. Yeah, Janaki?
I was just thinking that also the moment that you decide like, then let me try to appreciate or like serve this Vaishnava instead of criticize, then like that's exactly Krishna like just drinking up the forest fire.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can feel it, like if you have to make a conscious decision that I'm not going to enter into this stream of criticism. I'm going to stay safely on the bank and I'm going to take shelter from Krishna. Yeah. And appreciate and try to counteract it. Yeah. Max.
Seems like there's criticism. It seems like there's criticism on like a macro level, but what about like on the micro level? Because it seems like it can be like a slippery slope between being aware of something and then it being a criticism of someone, like an unnecessary criticism, especially within one mind. And the mind has the tendency of finding faults or criticizing. How to differentiate that from being aware of like, oh, the person came in late, and the difference between that being a criticism of their activities.
Well, one is just an observation and the other one is a judgment. Like an observation, that person came in late. That's just an observation. It's just a fact. It just happened. But if you start thinking, that person came in late, that means they're not a very good devotee. They're not serious. They don't really appreciate the class or the teachers, or they don't have consideration for the other students. Then that becomes a criticism. Yeah.
And how do we stop that snowball effect from going? Because the mind, I feel like the rationale tries to explain. I've seen my mind try to do this, where it will see something, witness it, and then try to be like, oh, it's this. And then the false ego won't let it be like, oh, I actually don't know.
Yeah, like they may have been doing a service, they may have been coming here early, but then they got caught and somebody asked them to help them with something that they really needed help, and there's nobody else there, and they've lent it in hand, and then you never know what happened, So our tendency is to assume bad things. We make negative assumptions. But then the word assume means to make an ass out of you and me. So
I also think about you love the sinner and hate the sin, so you can just try to separate like the person from the action, and be like, okay, well, that is an action that like, I didn't like or had like negative impact or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily mean that person is bad.
yeah. Yeah, and most people, like, let's say, just using this example of coming late for class, it's not that people try to come late. Generally, most people feel a little bit bad about coming late, and they wish that they were on time. So then, it's just something happened.
What would be your advice on satiating the mind when it's looking for answers and you have to, so that's something that
Well, if you're going to imagine something, just try to imagine a positive scenario. Yeah, something came up unexpectedly at the end, and yeah. Evan? Or you could just ask them, if you get that disturbed by it, you can say, I noticed that you're always late to class. Like, what happens? Like, is it the same thing, or is it different things every time? Or yeah.
How do you talk about somebody else's offenses and say that Kaliya is good, is that a criticism? You're saying that all this devotee. They are sexist or something. Is saying that a criticism? And like saying that all of them is harmful and it's disturbing and bogus and things like that.
Well, instead of saying that the person is sexist, because that's kind of like a label, right? Just say what they did, that this happened and this is what the person said. You know, and also you could say it appeared to me to be sexist. And so there's a few different things. One thing is that if you think a devotee was offensive and you're upset about it, then don't just go telling everybody. You should say it to the right people or person, right? So don't go to like, you know, just the first person that you happen to meet after that, and you're like all upset. Oh, I can't believe this person just said this. I'm so sexist, you know, because that's not good. So one thing is you have to say it to the right person. The other thing is that you have to say it with the right mood, not to condemn the person, but that you actually want to try to help the person. And that's why you're saying it to the right person, is because you're saying to the person that is in a position to help them. So the right person, the right mood, and then just say the facts. Just say what you observed without any, you know, judgments or assumptions or anything else. And then it's not critical. But as soon as you have the wrong mood, or you tell it to the wrong person, or you make a judgment, you like extrapolate, you know, in your own mind why they did something, what their motivation was, then it becomes criticism. And then you also get implicated. So you're talking about that you're thinking that person made an offense, but the way you respond to it, you become offensive too. So then you're just as guilty as that person. And then sometimes it happens that you think you're, you know, at least your mind's telling you that you're doing the right thing by telling somebody else what happened. But if those three things are wrong, you could get in more trouble than that person, you know, because it may be that they just, you know, actually weren't ill-motivated, weren't sexist or whatever it was, but just, I don't know, just had some other reason for saying what they said that was pretty innocent, but that you're, you know, like condemning them and telling the wrong people was 10 times worse than whatever they did. So we have to be careful with our whistleblowing too, that we make sure that we do things properly. All right, we better wrap it up because it's time for Dhammadarastika. So Krishna swelling up the forest fire, or whatever he did to that forest fire, putting it out somehow or other. Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.